Hello, this is David with Gaming Trend again, and I have some of the lead developers for Smite 2 in the room.
Hi, I'm Travis Brown, General Manager of Titan Forge Games.
I'm Pon. I'm an advanced game designer working at Titan Forge Games on Smite 2.
And I'm Alex Cantatore, the executive producer of Smite.
So I've had the privilege of getting a quick little bit of access to Smite 2, and first I'm amazed how much progress you guys have made this quickly. The mechanics are all there. Everything it feels like Smite, behaves that way.
Thank you.
What would you guys, can you tell me a little bit about how that development worked? Like, when did you start this? How did this go from, oh, maybe we could do this to, hey, this actually looks like it'll work?
Yeah, we've been working on something related to Smite IP for probably a few years now. And we were dabbling with this and that all throughout, basically up until December of 2022.
That's all right.
And at that point, we were kind of creating new game modes inside of UE5, and just like we created the first one in like 2 weeks, and we're like, yeah, wow, that was really cool. It was really neat to make such great progress so quickly, and it wasn't quite it. Wasn't what we were looking for. So we pivoted to another idea that we finished in exactly one day, and using the tools of the engine. So we were like, yeah, wow, that's really cool. But look at what we can do so quickly. And we were like, what if we just make Smite 2 inside of UE5? You know, what if we just try to recreate the Smite experience, but as quickly as possible? And literally, we pulled 5 people from the team to work on Smite 2, or to work on that prototype. And 1 month later, we had a video that you'll see later tomorrow that was basically a great Smite experience. And
I don't know if I'd say great. It was a rough Smite experience. But
with 5 people in 4 weeks, we were able to pull it all together. Once we saw that, what we were able to do there, we were like, wow, we probably let's dedicate some more time to that. And throughout the course of the next 12 months, we basically built what we see today. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's very cool. One of the hardest parts for just software in general is you're updating something, but it's like usually they tell you don't bother trying to make a new version of something because it's hard. You're better off making small refinements. Mm-hmm. With a game, that's not really an option when it's so kind of coupled with the game engine. Mm-hmm. Everything is so interrelated. It just seems like a daunting task. Just watching from the patch notes for Season 11 today, it's like, hey, we're changing how relics work. We're changing how, and so you guys you're developing Smite, but you're going against a moving target. Are there any tricks or anything you guys are trying to do to try to make that easier?
Well, yeah. One of the core things we did when we first built out the Smite 2 prototype was we really tried to take the approach of how can we build this, because we have like our target that we're going to. We kind of know what Smite is. We know what we need to hit. We know what we need to implement to the game. And so that actually lets us build it more foundationally sound, because you're not trying to stack things on top of each other. You can kind of build them cohesively and talk to each other. And so now when we actually want to go change things, it's a lot easier for us to do. There's one example where we were looking at a timing change for Ymir on an ability. We thought it was a little bit long from playtest feedback. And normally that would have been, I have to go talk to an animator. They have to go into the file. They have to update it. They have to import it. TechRise has to do the rig stuff. I have to go into the DB and change timings that are not obviously labeled. And then I have to wait for a build to see it, versus I just snip the ends of the montage, I change like a few things in the config file, and we had a prototype of that timing change that felt really, really good. And with that, then we can go to the animator and be like, hey, this feels really good. We've already kind of A/B tested it. We feel like this is a good direction to go. And so they can actually implement that in a more, it's been battle tested a little bit before just seeing it blind in a playtest for the first time.
I've read in games development that the unsung hero are the guys that write the tools that
without a doubt.
People. Do you guys have any just awesome tools? I know you guys mentioned you got a way of doing the cross-gen scans. Are there any other exciting tools like that you can talk about that you have access to?
I think the biggest one is, so Unreal 5 comes with Gas, which is like the gameplay ability system that we're building all of our foundation on. But the lead programmer, Josh, he has been working so hard to actually make that a approachable tool for design. And so we have our own internal version of things that allow designers to do things that Gas Baseline can do, but it's just in a much more friendly way. And so without him really giving us those tools to be able to actually do all the things and plug all the wires together in a smooth way, it'd be a lot more difficult to work with. And so that's a really good example of someone who's built out and fleshed out this UE5 system to make it more approachable for design.
Yeah, with that system, I think we were able to get Kukulkan's base kit up in like a day.
Yeah.
And, it would have taken 3 weeks of programmers, banging their heads against it previously. And now, obviously, like the programmers still have to go back and they have to clean up a lot of it still. But it lets you get that first rough draft out there quickly, and it gets you closer to finished than you ever would have been in the old system.
I imagine the feedback cycle is much quicker in the prototype.
Yeah, and we also get to actually have the VFX artists and the animators, because we can start doing some of the initial hookups where before we had to wait for programming to be able to actually put all the pieces together. That rough version is good enough often for the VFX artists and the animators to go in and start putting things in. So that's also a huge speed up to the pipeline.
Talking about pipeline speed ups for things like skins. I've always had the question because like certain gods, it seems like they're not getting as much. The one that comes to mind is Fafnir. And I'm like, well, just obviously he's got 2 forms. So that's probably at least double the work. But then there's transitions between, so it might be even more to animate between. Have you guys done anything with like Fafnir or Kukul, whatever his name is?
Yeah, you got to call it.
To the people that can transform, and is that easier in Unreal 5? Do you guys have that? Have you been able to try that out yet?
Yeah, so I don't think we've done any of the shapeshifting gods yet for Smite 2, but generally speaking, like what we found from going from Smite 1 to Smite 2 is that there are certain areas that are a lot easier, and there's other areas that are a lot more time consuming, right? So I think on the whole, it's probably about equal if you're starting from scratch to make a skin, but it's just that time goes into a different area, right? So in Smite 1, all of our animation is hand keyed. So every piece of fabric that moves, somebody individually moved that fabric frame by frame.
Okay.
And in Smite 2, we have cloth simulation. So the cloth can just kind of move more organically. But the effects are incredibly more difficult and time consuming to produce in Smite 2. So maybe we're saving a little bit on animation time, but we have a lot more effects time to create a skin. For Fafnir in particular, Fafnir suffers from the fatal issue of being both one of the most unpopular gods in the game. I think he's like bottom 3 and also having 2 forms. So we definitely do try and skin all the gods in Smite as frequently as we possibly can, but if it's an unpopular god, we know it's not going to sell very well, and it costs twice as much to do. So it's just more seldom that we can afford to do something we know we're going to lose money on. So.
And I know there's always a balancing act of, at the end of the day, you are a business, you're trying to make money on that, and you've got the popular ones. Are there any potentials that are unlocked by Unreal 5? Like, what's the thing that excites you the most of like, oh man, this used to be so hard, or we would never even think of trying this, but now you can. Is there anything pop to mind there?
Yeah, I'm excited about the possibilities of it. Like every time we do like the gameplay ability system that Palm was talking about, that Daniel Cooper was talking about. Every time we add a new character, we're adding basically a tool into a toolbox. And the more that we do that, the more it allows design to quickly iterate on not only new gods, but new NPCs or in gameplay changes that might affect the map and so on. So as we continue to develop it, we're turning into like maybe a Walmart toolkit into like an automotive like workshop, like heavy duty thing. I'm looking forward to the possibilities of the things that we can get more creative on in the game over time, just because the toolkit's so strong. We used to make custom game modes inside of Smite, but it was a really hard endeavor at that time. It's like some of the possibilities that we're going to unlock that gives design control is really exciting.
I know one thing when I was playing that just really struck me was the shadows when you go in the jungle, and that there's actually like certain parts are in the shade and certain parts are. And one of the things that just made me curious, you've got gods like Oleron or Sol, Sun. Is there? I'm guessing it's a lot easier to do. Like, hey, their abilities are actually a light source. They can cast shadows. I mean, there's cool stuff. Have you guys played with that at all, or is that?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that already.
Yeah, you can see that in the game today. You'll notice that, like, if Amir walks near the wall, you'll see that the wall turns a little bit blue, just the light's coming from him. But also abilities. You'll see Amir wall come up and actually impact the lighting on the rocks nearby, but also the frost will go up the side of the map as well. So yeah, we already have that in the game now, and it's really exciting. One of the things that I want to look into going into the future is other ways to affect the map environment based on how the characters may fire something that pulse like wind off of it, or certain lighting that lights a path before the trail comes through. Things like that we weren't able to do in Smite are really exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, this probably opens all sorts of opportunities where, like wind from one character can affect the cloth sim of another one.
Mhm,
You don't have to animate that. You just let the
Yeah, it's exciting.
Or like banners in the environment, right?
Oh,
so
right.
Smite 1 has a lot of like banners waving, but they just wave the same way they always wave because it's all hand-keyed animation. But now, if Susanoo made a whirlwind, then maybe it makes the banners flap, right? So there's a lot of opportunities like that.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite god to either move to Smite to or that you've worked on so far there?
I mean, I honestly think the first one we brought over was Ymir. He was a really good test bed for a lot of abilities you wanted to do. And so actually fleshing out what the first god kit was going to be there. And then we got to do a lot of experimentation of, do we want to make these attacks longer? Do we want to make them faster? Do we want to make them functionally different? And we had to do a lot of balancing between different versions of Ymir to see really what felt the best. And so like actually be able to just one day we were like, what if his wall knocked up? It's explosive and it erupts out of the ground. It feels like it should knock people away. We threw that into a playtest and it also hit himself in that playtest. We're like, oh yeah, that's a rocket jump. That's so cool. And so like that first iterative cycle was probably the most interesting that I got to go through. And it was just, there's a lot of discovering there that happened. That was so cool.
I would say for me, it's Bologna. Interestingly enough, I didn't really play a lot of Bologna in Smite. But as soon as we put the goddess in Smite 2, I was like, oh, well, I need to play her. And now I only play Bologna, and I go back to Smite. And what am I doing there? I'm playing Bologna now all the time. Yeah. So I think I'm going to have probably a special affinity to every god that we put in the game because I'm going to now dedicate myself to playing that new god, and then that'll be my new favorite until the next one comes in. I think it's going to be an iterative cycle.
Have you had any just like weird, unexpected things that show up with the places? I imagine just the Ymir bumping himself on the wall. Like, do you land on like the terrain in areas that you shouldn't be able to get here? We got to make collision boundaries here and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially as we're building out like all the core systems because this is really from the ground up. Things like making sure that you don't land on top of terrain when you do leap. As new tech comes in, sometimes things break in weird ways. We have an interesting video of Bologna where she. Every time she got hit, her model would turn inside out globally and actually fill the whole map. So that playtest was very strange, but that kind of stuff pops up all the time as we're building out everything from the ground up. But we look at those things and we find and fix them.
Sometimes the best features actually come from bugs. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that or we haven't developed the functionality for yet.
Yeah.
And with Loki, his ultimate, right now it doesn't attach to a character. So we have it be it's an actual cone. So you'll teleport and have a cone, and that cone allows you to reposition and potentially stun multiple targets.
Yeah,
I really like that because it's like maybe that's like the direction that we want to finalize Loki, and that's more skill expression for the players. And so sometimes we stumble onto things or we do things as placeholder that actually turn out to be really good changes. Mm-hmm. Those are the times where it's like, oh wow, maybe we shouldn't fix this one, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, that happened in OG Smite too. The Ymir wall, where you could place it, if you place it directly in front of you, if you're fast enough, you actually go past it before it comes up. And that was something that we actually embraced as a feature. And we actually got to turn that into a more dedicated feature in 2, where now the target will actually snap behind you if you aim close enough to show that that's actually intended functionality. It's not kind of wonky based off your movement speed anymore. And that's just kind of a cool thing we got to add as a +1 from that kind of initial bug that we had.
I remember seeing people do that, and I get so frustrated because I can never pull it off. Because it's like, I'm about to die. I need to do that trick. It's like, nope, I'm still just going to die, but I'm going to trap myself in and make it worse.
Yeah. I was going to say the dumb bug in today's playtest that all the people who played it tell us we should be keeping is while you're backing, you can jump and it doesn't interrupt your back.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, oh, this is fun. I just want to be doing this while I'm backing now. So maybe we'll see.
There you go. All right, so I've got a design philosophy question for some of you guys. For a long time, like a lot of games will have either called an orb walking or animation canceling. What do you guys think is design? Part of me is just like, okay, that allows skill expression, but on the other hand, it feels like you're abusing the game system because you just happen to know, hey, this animation, not really important. I can actually enter other commands. What do you guys think about that on a whole, or
Yeah, you want to?
No, you.
Okay, yeah, so, I mean, for animation canceling especially, that's something that we actually like in Smite 1. There is basic attack canceling, so when you're in the middle of a basic attack, the post-fire for most abilities, you have to kind of let resolve before you can do another ability, but the post-fire on the basic attacks you can totally cancel out. And that means a lot of assassins, a lot of characters have like really quick abilities. You're really kind of intended to have that flow. And as long as there's enough time there between like the pre-fire of that attack so that you can understand what's going on, I think it's okay. And if anything, that feeling of you kind of are getting one up on the devs, I actually think is one of the coolest feelings. I think that's why a lot of people like roguelike games where it's like, oh, I found this cheat combo that actually obliterates everything. Letting people feel that way is actually really good, and it raises a skill ceiling. But you just want to make sure and be careful that it's not too fast. A good example of that was Loki and Smite when we ended up reworking, because that kind of canceling was so fast that it ended up being that he got hit by 4 abilities within like 0.2 seconds, where most in-hand canceling characters, the amount of pre-fire time that adds up is close to like 0.5, 0.6, so it's something that you can actually parse happening to you. So we just got to be careful to make sure it's not too fast.
are there tricks that you guys try to do animation-wise to make it clear that, okay, now it's the javelin's been thrown, so I can do something at this point, but you can't do mid-throw, or...
Hebo water cannon was an example of that in Smite 1, but it's a good showcase of where we need to be careful, making sure the animations are good. He did a water spout, and then he would slowly pull his hands back like this. And here, he could actually cancel, but it looked like he was still actively engaged in the attack. And so you need to either extend the post-fire time to really make sure that that's what's happening, or you should come back closer to his model, and as he starts idling back, that's the really clear indication of the player, like, okay, this ability's over, he's kind of resolved, he's not really actively doing this anymore, he could go to another animation. And with blending, you're able to take that animation, and if he wants to do the uppercut, or the upper water spout, you can go from this animation to that upward motion pretty smoothly, but that pulling back is the most important thing to really convey to the player.
One thing, so I mean, I was shocked when we get the press early, like, hey, we're going to be announcing Smite 2. The second thought that I had was, oh no, how do you convince people? Because there's been a lot of people that have tried this and like fell flat on their face. And then like right afterwards, it's, hey, we're doing the things with the Divine Legacy, the gems carrying forward, which sounds like you guys have thought about this, and that just seems like a great system for that. So I just wanted to say kudos to you guys. Is there any, like, how much thought went into that? I mean, I'm sure that's not just
a lot of thought, I would say. Yeah. So that from the start, like from the very first like presentation we did internally to convince people that we should be making Smite 2, like there was a line in that, like, you know, we have to respect and honor the players' time, money, and achievements. Like, and that hasn't changed since then. And, you know, it was in the keynote, and I'm sure I'll say it 100 more times for this weekend's third. But, you know, we designed a system where we were like, okay, we think this is good. And we presented it to players. And players were like, maybe it should be a little bit more. And so we did a little bit more. And they were like, maybe a little bit more. And we did a little more. So we evolved that system maybe 5 times, just kind of tweaking what was in it, what we could do, until we got to a point where players that are, you know, kind of our NDA players that we can talk to and get good feedback from, said to us, one of them said actually, like, wow, this is more generous than I expected. And we were like, okay, maybe that's enough then. You know, like maybe we've hit the point where we, you know, players can be happy about this transition, because we knew that we couldn't port all the skins and make all of these changes that we wanted to do. And it sucked. But from the start, we were like, how can we make it not suck? How can we make it be as awesome as possible for players so they feel like they're still getting all their money, they're still getting all their rewards, you know, they can show off, like, I was a baller in Smite 1, you know, I owned this skin, I had 100 stars on Hubwa, you know, like, you know, I don't know if anybody has stars on Hubwa, probably not. Maybe one person.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, that kind of stuff, you need to be able to carry on and show, like, I was awesome, I had a legacy in Smite, and this is the next generation. And hopefully with the new systems, you can do that.
Yeah, especially, like, the cross-gen skins. I mean, that's great, because you have to avoid the pitfall of, why am I going to spend money in Smite if a year from now Smite 2 is coming and I don't like it? So it's like, hey, you got an answer for that. So
you're going to get all the skins that come out in year 11. They're gym purchasable. You'll get in Smite 2. And you'll also get more legacy gems for buying the skins. So it's kind of like double bonus.
Yep.
There were some people who were like, no, we should cut off the legacy gems. They were like, nope, got to keep doing it. Got to keep it rolling. So.
First and foremost, we wanted to make Smite 2 amazing and just to be a great experience, and And we knew that fundamentally players wanted to have an improved version of UE5 Smite, and that was the main driver. It's like we want to create this game, and we want to give that to the players. But we understand that we're gamers too. We know what it's going to feel like, and so because we were so dedicated to giving them that experience in Smite 2, and we wanted to get that into their hands. That's why fundamentally we were like, no. What else can we do? What else can we do? Because we don't want anyone to feel like, oh no, I'm getting left behind. So Smite 1 is going to continue to be playable all throughout, not only 2024 but beyond. But we want to encourage players like, no, over here you will have rewards for you. You'll have your history. You'll have everything that you remember that you like about Smite. We're gonna create these systems to give you those things that'll make you feel like, okay, Smite 2 is something that I don't feel bad about playing now. I actually encourage to play it, but also it's just we finally get to make the game that we want to give to everyone in UE5. That's the most at a fundamental level. I just wanted to give them Smite 2 an amazing experience, and like, what can we do to make them not like want to join that journey with us?
Cool. Well, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you stopping, watching Worlds coverage in order to come in here and talk to me. So have a good rest of the Smite World Championship.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.